WNST, make you wait any longer for this. This is one of our favorite guests to ever have on the show. We don't bug him too much, but he's always dropping some knowledge, as well as his unique Maryland sense of humor. He's down in South Carolina running around. I don't know, he's hunting, fishing, golfing. I know he's teaching people how to pitch because that's what he did best. We welcome on former Baltimore Orioles pitching coach, but you know him, of course, as the legendary Atlanta Braves pitching coach, Leo Mazzoni, coming back to the Free State here. What are you doing to stay busy down there? I can't keep up with you in your retirement, Leo.
Well, I don't know if you can call it retirement, but I do. Every Saturday I have my baseball show with 680 The Fan in Atlanta, and I'm also a special assistant to the head coach at Furman University, and I'm doing pitching seminars across the country trying to get the word out and explain the proper ways to take care of teenage baseball, the traveling all-star teams, and also to take care of arms at a teenage level all the way through the professional level to stop the epidemic of sore arms.
Well, you know what, man? If I had a kid who had lightning in his arm, you'd be my first phone call. And, I said to my wife, Leo never shows up anywhere except in Cooperstown every year. Put another guy. I mean, that's nice that you're known for that, right?
Well, guess what? I'm going to make an appearance again this year because John Sherholtz is going in.
There's always somebody going in.
He's a Marylander.
Well,
and then it's 1 or 2 years from now. After that, we'll have to make another appearance for Chipper Jones.
That keeps happening. And, one thing, let's start with this because I know you didn't read the Brady Anderson piece, and we'll save that for later because a lot of people around here would wonder because you've been, relatively, honest about your experience in Baltimore. But I'm really calling more about that Atlanta situation, man. I watched the stadium down there, and Leo, we're celebrating 25 years of Camden Yards.
Right.
And it's exciting and all. But one thing we don't have at Camden Yards, I saw the damnedest thing. They have the tables out there in right field in the new ballpark where you stick the beer into the table and the table's frozen and it keeps the beer cold. Leo, you probably would have retired 15 years earlier if this thing would have.
Well, let me tell you something. I used to own a car that had that. It was a Chrysler, and they let me drive it. And it was a 300C, and you put the holders in, and you hit. If you had coffee, you would hit the button and it would get warm. And then if you had ice water, if you hit the button, then it got cold. So, therefore, I've seen that before, but no, they do have it in the new stadium. Matter of fact, the Braves alumni had me go down last week and meet and greet some of the high rollers that are being introduced to the new stadium and the suites and the season tickets and all that. So I had a great time down there, and it actually is a beautiful ballpark, and it's going to, as they say, state of the art. And but most of the teams, I saw some the birth of new ballparks, and the standard was set by the Baltimore and the Camden Yards.
Well, I mean, you were a guy who wore that A on your hat proudly for a couple of decades, and I bet you don't have as much romance with Turner Field, and now that the other stadium was already knocked down on the Hank Aaron Wall, where you guys celebrated and won your championship, and I was in there, Ryan Klesko dousing my ass with champagne. I still don't think I've washed it out at this point. But, moving out to the suburbs for that community, my wife said, well, what was wrong with the old ballpark? And Leo, the weirdest thing is on television, watching that last week when they were playing that game down there, it looks like they picked up Turner Field and flopped it down 20 miles to the north. It looks like the same stadium.
No, not at all. You walk inside, it's not even close. It's not close at all. I mean, it has its own unique wall in right field, a little bit like Camden Yards, where it's a short porch, but it goes up high, only it's brick, kind of like Pittsburgh. And you have some angles and nooks and crannies that give it its own little flavor. Now, as far as connections, I still have great feelings for Fulton County Stadium, and my greatest recollection of that was they called it the launching pad, that you would never get good pitching there. And of course, we dispelled that myth. And then we went to Turner Field, and Turner Field was beautiful. But here's the thing. The Braves never had a stadium of their own until this one. For example, the launching pad was shared by the Braves and the Atlanta Falcons, right? And then Turner Field was part of the Olympics. So there was never one stadium built for the Atlanta Braves in mind, period. Now they do have that one stadium that's just only for them. And I think a lot of people don't know that Turner Field, half of most of that's going to be used for the new Georgia State football field. and then the old stadium, which still has the blue wall erected on the other side of Turner Field. Georgia State's going to build a new baseball stadium there with that wall being part of it.
Crazy with the fire happening down there last week in the ballpark opening up. I mean, for the Braves to move this thing out to the suburbs, is it really going to help it? I mean, you know that community better than anyone. They put a lot of money, a lot of time into this, but abandoning the city, that seems foreign to me. Where we moved Camden Yards into the city, I don't think anybody here would want to see Camden Yards in Bel Air or in Westminster.
When you're looking at Camden Yards, you got the Inner Harbor. What did you have at Turner Field? Nothing.
Nothing ever came around it, right? Literally.
If you went to Turner Field for a ball game and you got there early, there was nowhere you could go. You would tailgate out in the parking lot a little bit, but that's about it. What you're going to do now is, Camden Yards has the unique setup of being able to be at the Inner Harbor and have all the great restaurants and et cetera, et cetera. Now the Braves have that. They have their own city at the Galleria area on Cobb Parkway, and they have their own city with apartments and beautiful restaurants and bars and all these sorts of things that create a city within the city. That's what Baltimore has. They have their Inner Harbor within the city. Coors Field, when they built Coors Field, they have a whole streets of rows of restaurants and types of things where people can go there even if there's not a ball game and go. And that's what they needed there. So, that's why the Braves moved from Turner Field, because there was nothing for the fans to do except go into the ballpark. Now, as a coach, it didn't bother me because, I went to the ballpark at noon and got home at 2:00 in the morning, so I never ran into traffic or anything like that. But also, everything empties into downtown to get to Turner Field. Now, no matter where you go in Atlanta or all these cities, you're going to have traffic. We know that. But the bottom line is, let me tell you something. You brought up the bridges too, right? I'm going to tell you what. That's going to be 250,000 cars a day that can't get across there.
And that's kind of crazy as well, that everybody's going to be turned around. Do you think the Braves, building to this, we've known this was coming for a couple of years, are they going to be representative on the field this year? I see the old pitchers. My wife looked up. She could not believe R.A. Dickey and Bartolo Colon were still pitching in the same place. But, every time Colon comes to bat, I love, we all love to watch him hit, but. Let
me tell you why I love Colon. Colon, it can prove to people. Now, whether he can do it this year, I don't know. Come on. Sooner or later, he's got to hit a brick wall. But he throws a ton of fastballs that are 82, 83 miles an hour and proves to youngsters and proves to people that you can pitch without hitting a number on a radar gun. He's an example of that I like. Now, do I think he's going to be that effective this year? It would surprise me if he was, because you're getting to a certain point where you just, sooner or later, you can't pitch anymore. But he's been amazing with fastball command. And then R.A. Dickey's a knuckleballer. Maybe being in the National League will help him out a lot. But here's the bottom line, guys. The Braves added some power. You have a first baseman that can hit. You have a second baseman that can hit. You have a shortstop that I think is the up-and-coming star of the team. You have a center fielder in Insarte that can shag him down. You all know Nick Markakis. He's solid as a rock and right. And you have Matt Kemp in left. So you have a lineup that's capable of production. But you go down that pitching staff, which is the complete opposite of what it used to be. You go down and see the rotation. You go down and see the bullpen. I think the closer is the former Baltimore Oriole, Johnson. And, I remember having him, and I always thought he was going to be a very good setup guy because of a sinker baller, but he's closed a lot more. He's done a great job in his career. But I don't know how long that rotation can hold up. I don't know what's going on with these older guys in the rotation are one of two reasons why they're there. Number one, it's just a stopgap for the young guys, the young prospects to develop. Or number two, those prospects haven't developed because I haven't seen any.
He is. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
He is Leo Mazzoni, of course, pitching coach legend with the Atlanta Braves, as well as here with the Orioles for a period of time. Leo, I'm trying to get excited about the Orioles this year, and the off season is so important for for what you're going to do, and for the Orioles off season. They didn't have a good off season, and they're at the bottom of the rotation. They don't even know. Buck can't even tell you who his fifth starter is right now, and we're playing baseball. The Tillman, when guys aren't aren't ready
Right.
to pitch on opening day after 6 months of gearing up for it. I mean, it's one thing to get hurt in spring training or whatnot. It's another thing to be lingering into a second year with a shoulder injury. That concerns me. I'm worried about the Orioles regressing this year, Leo.
Well, number one, I never worried about the fifth starter. I really never did. You know why? Because I knew if our top four guys were going to the post when it's their turn, which is key, then you have a chance to win every night. But they have to be able to go to the post when it's their turn. You can't be missing starts. You can't be skipping them starts. You can't be moving them extra days rest and all this. You got to have a rotation where four guys make a regular turn. The fifth guy can be moved around here and there, or you could even change the fifth guy every once in a while. But we always wanted four guys to start most of our games, and that's the only way you're going to win a pennant. Now their bullpen, of course, they got a great closer, of course they do. But what's happened with bullpens now, the way they're being used, and as much as they're being abused all over baseball, the bullpens now change dramatically. You can't tell from one year to the next who's going to be in that bullpen effectively and healthy. The Braves went through it. Every major league team goes through it. So therefore, the key to the whole Orioles season is four starting pitchers. If those four starting pitchers can go to the post when it's their turn, they'll be in the pennant race. If they can't, they're going to either have to outslug somebody or, grind it out. So it's very simple. It's very simple for Baltimore. They got power. They have a closer. What they have to do is get four starters out there on a regular basis. If they do that, they can make a run.
Leo, the game's changed so much where I look up, and the Orioles last year, from a statistical standpoint, guys hitting 38 home runs and not driving in 100 runs. Guys, hitting 25, 28 home runs and driving in 75, 80 runs. They don't walk, they don't move around on the base. But baseball itself, it's a walk, it's a strikeout, or it's a home run, right? And that's a weird thing to get used to see guys with 20, 25 home runs. Upton last year, Pedro Alvarez, find themselves looking for jobs all offseason because 25 home runs doesn't represent anything, especially when you're striking out 150, 175 times.
Right. Well, there's always been a lot of guys that hit a lot of home runs and strike out a lot, And that's been in baseball for a long time. I saw a stat I think one year where even late in the great years of the 60s and 70s, there was guys that hit 30 some home runs and didn't drive in 100 runs. So that's always been around. Now, how much more there is of that now, I don't know. Probably on Baltimore's team, there's a little more of that because of the style of hitters they got. But they can take you deep at any time. But the bottom line is still this. Whether you strike out or hit home runs or drive in runs, four starters got to do some work. And if they don't, you can strike out and hit home runs all you want because you're going to be playing from behind all the time. And how's a bullpen great? A bullpen's great if your starting rotation gives them enough rest and they don't get abused.
Well, and we have a different thing here. There's this whole shuttle thing that Buck has worked through where, I remember, Leo, when we used to come north back in your era, it was a big story around here at sports radio as to who the 22nd, 23rd, who the 9th, 10th, 11th guy were on the staff, and you always had that extra rest the first week or two, and you knew there'd be a little shuttling. The way the Orioles run this thing, they hide guys down in Norfolk and fly them out here for a road trip and sit there. There's no longer 9, 10, 11 guys. Everybody's pitching, staff is 15 to 17 deep by the time the season's over. There are guys you sent to Norfolk this week that you're absolutely going to be bringing those guys up in May and June and July, especially when you have the Jimenezes and the Wade Mileys around,
How about this? Last year, the Atlanta Braves had to bring up a spot starter in the second week of the season. Are you kidding me? How about this? How would you like to use 35 pitchers in 1 year, which Atlanta did last year? Are you kidding me? That's not only in Baltimore where you got a shuttle system going. It's in a lot of places. But to have to, you don't have somebody to start a game in the second week of the season. You got to go get a spot starter. There's something wrong with that. And there's something wrong with everybody being shuttled to where you can't pick 10 or 11 guys and stay with them.
Didn't you have a pretty strong delineation in your mind as to what was a major league pitcher and what was some guy that probably should be in Richmond? There were a lot of guys in Richmond that won a lot of games that never got a cup of coffee up with you guys because I guess you just deemed them a 4A guy, a AAA pitcher.
You're right.
The lines are very blurred today as to how many guys in the big leagues really are AAA pitchers.
Well, it is, and you know, and here's the thing too. A lot of people now aren't developing pitchers to where, you know, you're allowed to pitch many innings. You put an innings limit on in the minor leagues. You're also making guys a reliever real early in their careers when they never learn how the hell to pitch. All they do is throw hard, and they don't know how to pitch. And I've got to see it before, like even when I was in Baltimore. You had a base of good starting pitch, you know, Eric Bedard and Jeremy Guthrie, and we had a lot of fun with those guys. But when they would bring somebody up from AAA, I always felt that the guy was, you know, more or less a AAA pitcher. And you see that more and more around baseball now. And then they bring him up for a day, he pitches, and they send him back down and replace him with somebody else. And there's something wrong with the development going on. In other words, there's innings limits in the minor leagues. I always felt that whatever your best arm was in the farm system, he should start all the time. Then if he got to the big leagues, you could make him a reliever depending on the strengths and weaknesses of your staff. That way you found out how you could pitch and what kind of pitches you had, you know. But there is this, the way they teach pitching in the minor leagues now. I'm not pointing out any particular team. I'm just putting on an overall Major League Baseball philosophy. It's innings limits. You can't pitch guys back to back. You can't do this. You can't do that. Oh, he can pitch 6 innings, but he can only throw an A ball. He take a guy out after 5 innings because he's thrown 65 pitches. You know, give me a break. I mean, this is an absolute joke. When if you have a minor league system and all your top arms start at each level, and you teach them how to throw more often with less exertion, you will lower the risk of arm injury and teach pitchers how to pitch. But what they do is they make sure they get a lot of rest so that when they do go out, they can airmail the damn thing, and somebody's going to say, oh, my, he's throwing 94, 95. Oh, my, look at him. You know, and that's all they care about. They never learn how to pitch, and they blow out, you know.
He is Leo Mazzoni, always outspoken and always a Marylander down in South Carolina now and doing radio down in Atlanta as he does. Yeah, I can get you laughing. Last thing for you, because I want to talk about the Brady Anderson thing in the future with you, but he threw out something in that Ken Rosenthal piece 2 weeks ago about how the organization screwed up by allowing the best pitcher of the generation out. He was talking about Arrieta. Any thoughts that you would have about a guy like Arrieta? Because, look, it didn't come easy for Maddox. It didn't come easy for Glavine. I mean, you know, they fell into a nice circumstance with you and you with them and the right situation and the right manager. And here we are, kumbaya, and you get to go to Cooperstown every year. But the Arrieta thing, I don't think anybody who watched him labor here for a number of years ever thought that he was going to become the best pitcher in baseball.
Well, I mean, you know what? Sometimes it is a change of scenery and a change of approach that allows a pitcher to loosen up and free himself up. I remember one of my prized possessions is a baseball from Jeremy Guthrie in Baltimore, and one of my prized possessions, he put on there, without you giving me the confidence, I would have never made it. For example, Jeremy Guthrie was touted in Cleveland, you know, and then the Orioles made a nice acquisition and got him for pretty much nothing. Well, when we were in spring training, I'm watching him throw, and he looks pretty good to me. And so I called Jeremy over, and I said, Jeremy, how come Cleveland wasn't high on you? He goes, well, they told me I thought about stuff too much. If I'm not mistaken, he graduated from Stanford. So you know what I told him? I said, a wise man told me one time, Jeremy, if you can't think, you can't pitch. The mind is a wonderful thing, and you go ahead and outthink everything you want because we can exchange ideas and get it squared away. Once that clicked, he turned himself into a very good pitcher, and as you know, he had a long career. And had some success there, had some success in Kansas City, and Jeremy listened to a different voice who gave. You work off his strengths, so those things do happen sometimes. You know, it's like simplifying your game. When we got a Jarrett Wright from Cleveland when I was in Atlanta, he was able to understand that he could locate 91 or 92 and be perfectly fine instead of blowing 95, you know? And so these are the things you have to learn in order to be successful. It's John Burkett who rejuvenated his career. Why did he turn it around? We encouraged him to throw more fastballs even though he only threw 84 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour. But he was able to locate that fastball. So these are things that go on that click with certain pitchers, and I'm just giving you a couple examples, and that may have happened in Arrieta's case.
Leo, it all starts with strike one, right? Without strike one, you got nothing.
Let me tell you something. Without strike one, you can throw the scouting reports away. And you know what? And here's the thing that you always got to remember, guys. What's the most important pitch for a pitcher? His next one.
Leo, take care of yourself, man. We'll talk some Cubs and once the season gets going here and talk about who's going to win and who's going to lose. It's always great to visit with you, man. And fishing down there, golfing, what are you doing? You doing anything fun?
If I get on the boat, I go on the boat with a cooler. And you know what I did? The last time I was in Maryland, I went up to Cumberland to visit my mother who's in assisted living, and I stopped off at the liquor store and got me some National Bohemian beer to bring it down here and put it in the refrigerator. And then I got some Iron City Light. So down here I was able to show people the Baltimore Oriole beer and the Pittsburgh Pirate beer.
Oh, man, that'll,
And that's what I do on the boat.
I knew you were a man of very, very humble tastes.
You know what? I thought they tasted delicious.
I bet you did. They're ice cold. Leo, take care of yourself, man. We'll check in again soon, and we'll be sending everybody out to listen to you on Saturdays down there in Atlanta at the Fan, too.
Absolutely. Please do. All right. Take care.
You got it. Leo Mazzoni, one of our favorites, former Oriole pitching coach, longtime Atlanta Braves pitching coach. And if you don't know who he is, kids, you should Google him. He's a good one. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning, and that is all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It is opening day week. Luke's at the ballpark all week. I'll be tweeting, having fun. I am proudly, and I do mean proudly, bragging on my 11th year of being thrown out of the Oriole press box for asking real questions of management that I still am looking for answers to 11 years later. But I am watching. I'll be opining. I'll be writing. I love baseball season, and it's here now. So let's get it on, as they say. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. I'll be opining in all those places. And, of course, streaming live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If there's any breaking news, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.